What's up, everybody? My name is Gilbert Schurch. I'm a high school strength and conditioning coach. I'm also a PE teacher in Harlem, and today we are going to talk about two key principles in building muscle: accommodation versus progressive overload. These are two key principles when it comes to building muscle, and you need to have an understanding of them in order to achieve your dreams. I can't tell you how many times this happens. In the hallway when I'm working in the school, kid comes past me, they'll go, "Yo, Schurch, hey, how do I put on some size? How do I put on some strength? What should I do to do this?" And I'll typically say something like, you should squat, you should deadlift, you should bench press, you should get some pull-ups in there, you should probably work some sprinting into your routine. But this really is surface cookie cutter stuff, and all I'm really doing is talking about certain movements that they should do. And on the surface, this is a great place to start. Learn how to squat well, learn how to deadlift well, learn how to press well. All those movements that are big and multi-joint can make you really big and strong. However, if we're looking at the sort of programming sort of things, how many reps should I do? How many sets should I do? How much should I do in a session? These things are something that we need to talk about in a little bit further detail. And what's really important is that you understand the principles behind these, behind the reasons that you should program in a certain way. So the first thing we're going to do in this video is talk about accommodation, and then we're going to talk about how to overcome accommodation through the use of progressive overload. And don't worry if these terms are confusing, we're going to hammer them right now. Let's get to work. So, accommodation is quite simply your body adapting to a stress that you have placed on it, and your body no longer needs to adapt to it. Remember, our bodies are adaptation machines. If we lift weights, we grow to adapt to lifting those weights. But if we continue to lift those same weights over and over and over again, right? If the exact same weights are lifted at the exact same time, the exact same reps, eventually our body adapts to those reps and weights and sets, and there's no more reason to grow. This is commonly called a plateau in the fitness world, or in weightlifting world, or in powerlifting world, or anywhere. So let me give you another example that's maybe a little bit more closer to what may happen in your own home right now, especially during Corona. So a kid comes up to me, he says, "Schurch, every single day I do 100 push-ups." And I'm like, "Sick, that is awesome, so cool, love it." However, what happens over that time is this kid does 100 push-ups each day. That first day, he's super sore, he's crushed. It's like, oh my God. He continues to do the push-ups, right? 100 each day. It gets a little bit easier and a little bit easier and a little bit easier. And then once we get to about a month down the road, all of a sudden, 100 push-ups isn't all that hard to pull off anymore. 100 push-ups isn't all that difficult to do. And this is cool because he's adapted to 100 push-ups. But on the flip side, let's say that same kid continues to do 100 push-ups every single day after that first month. Doesn't get sore anymore, they get pretty easy, but he also gets bored, and he also doesn't see any changes in his musculature from it. So that first month when he was doing 100 push-ups a day, he was like, "Oh my God, sweet, I have a chest and triceps, or some definition in them, or something more than I had before." And I'm like, "Yes, awesome, keep doing it." But then after that first month, he has reached accommodation, which means his body has adapted to the stress he's placed on it, and it no longer needs to change. It no longer needs to go through any more adaptations to deal with that physical stress he placed on it. So when we talk about programming and we talk about what we should do in the weight room, yes, we should do multi-joint, big faceted movements like squat, deadlift, press, pull-up, sprint, all that stuff that I'll say over and over and over again until the end of time. But you also need a plan behind those things that generally progresses the amount of work that you do over a standard period of time. And that leads us to progressive overload. So let's start talking about the importance of progressive overload and how that should factor into you doing workouts and you creating workouts over the long term for long-term gains. Let's talk about it. So here it is, progressive overload. Very simply, small increases in stress over a long period of time. That's it. That's all it is. Sounds simple, but mark my words, this is the absolute bedrock of every single smart and successful training program out there, where they start small, they add a little bit each time you work out until you see this long-term picture of gains where it's almost like you started with a seed in the ground, you watered it a little bit each and every day, and it progressively grew because there was progressively more stress. Okay, that was probably a little bit too meta, but let's go back to Push-Up Kid, right? Instead of him doing 100 push-ups a day, let's say he applied the principle of progressive overload. So instead of doing 100 a day, he decided to do 80 push-ups 3 days a week to start out with. No matter what, in that day he did 80 push-ups. But then the next week, he decided to do 90 push-ups. And then the week after that, he decided to do 100 push-ups. And then the week after that, he decided to do 110 push-ups. And the week after that, he decided to do 120 push-ups. And he saw consistent gains and differences in his body composition because he was consistently adding a little bit more stress every single time that he worked out over a long-term period. Progressive overload is, once again, small increases in stress over a long period of time. And the benefits of this are immense, provided that you can have a plan, measure the results, and stay consistent. The beauty behind progressive overload is that you can start with very, very manageable goals, right? So for example, let's say you've never worked out before. I can easily say, hey, I want you to do 50 air squats, and I want you to do that 3 times a week. And pretty much everyone can do 50 air squats. If you don't know what an air squat is, sit down in a chair and then get back out of the chair. Do it 50 times. That's basically an air squat. Pretty much everyone can do that. And then the beauty of it is, because it's so bite-sized and because you're like, oh, I can definitely do that, when the next week comes and I'm like, hey, now I want you to do 55 air squats a day. You're like,
well, 5 was only a little bit more than 55 is only a little bit more than 50 of them. That doesn't seem to be an issue. I'll definitely do that.
Right, and then you do 55 during that next week. And then the next week, I just add the little carrot at the end. We're like, all right, now I want you to do 60 of them. And again,
and you're like, well, 60 isn't that much more than 55.
And the loop continues. And again, over the long period of tiny additions of stress, you can start to build a truly impressive foundation of strength and of musculature. And mark my words, this is how every single person with an incredibly impressive physique has built it over a long period of time through increasingly harsh stresses. No one's born with 245 pounds of muscle. No one. It doesn't happen, right? But the work started, and it was a small enough amount of work that they could adapt to it and they weren't run down. And then that work was slowly added to. The workouts got a little bit bigger each time they went in. The weights got a little bit heavier each time they went. They didn't settle for the same weights or the same routines or the same exercises every single time they went into the gym because they wanted to continue to see progress. And it was tiny baby steps followed by some planning, measurement, and consistency that led them to a great physique. Finally, I want to show you what I do with my weightlifting kids because I think it's incredibly instructive when it comes to progressive overload. This is what I do with my kids Mondays, Wednesdays, and Fridays, and it's super simple, and seeing it will sort of make you realize how easy this is to pull off so long as you are consistent. Here it is. Everybody, welcome to Weightlifting at UASGC, the Urban Assembly School for Global Commerce. This is exactly what I do in the program after school, though sometimes we lift on Tuesdays as opposed to Wednesdays. But in general, it goes like this. We squat on Monday and we do 3 sets of 5. So 3 sets of 5 repetitions, they're all at the same weight. And then we press, right? So pressing overhead, 3 sets of 5, again, all at the same weight. When we initially start these weights, they are light. They are challenging, kind of, but I make sure every single kid can do them. A general starting weight for the squat I have the kids at is 135. On Wednesday, we deadlift 1 big set of 5, and then we do pull-ups. We do 3 sets, and they try and do as many pull-ups as they can. Again, when we first start, very manageable weight, fairly easy to pull off. The pull-ups, depends if the kids can do the pull-ups. If they can, they try and do as many as they can. If they can't, I have them do some other things. That's not the purpose of this right now. Just know that we keep track of it. And then on Friday, we squat again, and we go 3 sets of 5, but then you see that little +5 guy? We add 5 pounds to the weight we did on Monday. So if you squatted 135 on Monday, now you're squatting 140 pounds, just like that. And then we bench press 3 sets of 5. Now the second week is where you're really going to start to see a little bit more progressive overload. Keep in mind that we record every single number that we hit here. We know what we hit for our big set of 5 on the deadlifts. We know how many pull-ups we got in total. It's written down in a notebook every single time we work out. We have a training log, aka we measure it. Week 2 comes along, we check that training log, we say that we hit 140 successfully for 3 sets of 5. So guess what? We squat again, 3 sets of 5 and +5 right there. So we're gonna make it 145. You're going 3 sets of 5 at 145. For the press, we go 3 sets of 5 and oh, look at that, +2.5. Because the press involves smaller muscles than the squat and the deadlift, we progress it a little bit slower. So we add only 2.5 to the weight. On Wednesday, we have the deadlift. You'll again notice that we have a +10 here. Deadlift is probably the biggest of the weights. We can progress it a little bit quicker. So we take the deadlift that we hit on Wednesday, and let's say we hit a 185 deadlift. So on this Wednesday of the second week, we hit a 195 deadlift. You can see the progressive overload. And then we do some pull-ups, max effort. And again, we check how many pull-ups we did on Wednesday. Let's say we got 12 total. We did 4 each time. The goal is to get at least 13 or higher. Again, progressively overloading it. And Friday, oh my God, we squat again. So we're at 140, now we're at 145, now we're at 150. And the bench press, again, 3 sets of 5, we're gonna add 2.5 pounds to it because we want everything to progress. Week 3 is the exact same as week 2 with these same increases in strength or in load every single time we do it. This program is super simple and stupid easy to sort of implement, provided you have some barbells and some weights to work with, and provided that you measure it and are consistent with it. But if you do something like this, oh my God, give it 2 months and this 135 squat is now, because we've added 10 pounds every single week to it, is a 215 pound squat. I hope I did the math right there. That's never smart for me to do on camera. But he just increased, or she just increased, or anyone just increased their squat by 80 pounds in the space of 2 months because it was consistent overload. If I put 215 pounds on their back in the beginning of that month, like when they first started, they would
fall to pieces.
But because we progressively loaded it, and let's say 135, it's not that hard. 140, okay, again, not that hard because I just did 135. 145, not that hard, I just hit 140, it's only 5 pounds up. This is how we get that snowball rolling, and that is the heart of progressive overload. I hope you guys understand or have a little bit better understanding of what progressive overload means and how you should apply it to working out. And keep in mind that it doesn't just have to be increasing the weight. We could make this squat 3 sets of 5, and then the next day, when the next time we squat, it could be 3 sets of 6. You could increase it by repetition. It doesn't always have to be weight. Repetitions is a great way to progressively overload as well. What I really hope this makes you do, though, is get your mind working around the corners of accommodation. I think so many people fall into the trap of getting into a routine in the weight room where they do the exact same weight, the exact same thing every single time, and then they start sort of shrugging their shoulders and not understanding.
Why aren't I progressing? Why aren't things getting better? Why aren't I getting stronger? Why aren't I getting bigger? I don't understand.
Hopefully, progressive overload can instruct you in ways of breaking through plateaus and getting you to be as strong or as big as you possibly want to be. Till next time, I'll see you then. But of course, like and subscribe. If you like this content, if you like learning about fitness stuff, if you like how it's directed sort of at a teenage high school group, please join me, comment in the sections, all that good stuff. I love talking about this stuff. I will respond if you comment. I love helping out kids on their iron journey. I'm the teacher for it. I always have loved helping people start with this. So again, like and subscribe. I hope this video helped you out. Till then, take it easy.